What if the most powerful person in the building was the one everyone ignored? What if, while you were busy impressing the people above you, you were failing the only test that actually mattered? This is the story of a CEO who made one very public mistake. An old man with a mop who never said a single word he didn't mean. Meet Richard Calloway, 42 years old, sharp suit, sharper tongue. Richard was the kind of man who walked into a room and expected it to change temperature. And most of the time it did. He had been appointed CEO of Callaway and Voss International just 18 months ago, a $500 million firm, global clients, marble lobbies, corner offices with views that made people feel like gods. Richard loved every inch of it. He ran the company the way a general runs a battlefield, with precision, control, and absolutely zero tolerance for weakness. His staff walked quickly. They spoke carefully. They laughed only when he laughed first. To the board, he was a results machine. Numbers up, cost down, efficient. To the people who actually worked there every day, he was something else entirely. Nobody really knew how long Walter had worked at Callaway and Voss. Some of the older employees said he had been there before the renovation, before the rebrand, before Richard, maybe before all of it. He was a quiet man, late 60s, maybe early 70s. Silver hair tucked under a faded cap, calm eyes behind thin-framed glasses. He moved slowly, not because he was lazy, but because he had the kind of stillness that only comes from a life fully lived. Every morning, Walter arrived before anyone else. He polished the lobby floors until they shone like mirrors. He emptied trash cans without being asked twice. He fixed the coffee machine on the third floor that no one could ever figure out. He remembered people's names. He asked about their children. The junior staff loved him. They would stop and chat between meetings, grab him a sandwich from the cafeteria, hold the elevator door. But to Richard, Walter was invisible. Not because Richard didn't see him, but because Richard had decided that some people simply weren't worth seeing. It was a Tuesday morning. The lobby was full. Employees arriving, badges beeping, phones buzzing. Richard was walking fast, as always, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. His eyes were on his screen. His mind was already in his 9 o'clock. And then it happened. Walter was wringing out his mop nearby. A small puddle, no bigger than a dinner plate, sat at the edge of the hallway. There was a yellow caution sign right beside it. Richard didn't see the sign. His expensive shoe hit the wet floor. He didn't fall, but he stumbled. Coffee splashed. Just a little. Just enough to catch his sleeve. The lobby went silent. Richard turned slowly. His eyes found Walter, who was already reaching forward with a cloth, his voice gentle. "I'm so sorry, sir. Let me help." "Don't." The word was like a blade. Richard looked at the cloth, then at Walter, then at the room full of watching eyes. And something in him decided that this moment needed an audience. "Do you have any idea who I am? Do you understand what I'm walking into this morning?" Walter stood still. "Sir, there was a sign. I don't care about your sign. Your job, your one job, is to make sure this building is safe and clean and ready. And you can't even do that without making a mess of someone's morning." He straightened his jacket, looked Walter up and down like a man inspecting something he had decided to throw away. "You're done. Security will walk you out. Leave your badge at the desk." A beat of stunned silence. Walter didn't argue, didn't raise his voice. He just looked at Richard, a long, quiet, searching look, and nodded once. "As you wish," he said softly, and he turned and walked toward the elevator. Nobody said a word, but everyone watched, and everyone felt it. That uncomfortable shift in the air when something deeply wrong has just been done in front of witnesses. 1 hour later, Richard sat at the head of the conference table on the 14th floor. The quarterly board meeting, the most important gathering of the year. 7 board members. The company's future on the table. Richard was mid-sentence, talking about expansion strategy, Southeast Asia, projected growth when the door opened. The board's senior legal counsel, Margaret Shun, leaned in quietly and placed a folder in front of the chairman. The chairman opened it, read for a moment, then looked up slowly. The room shifted. "Richard," the chairman said, his voice careful. "We need to pause." Richard frowned. "We're in the middle of something." "I know, but something has come to our attention that cannot wait." Richard looked around the table. Something in the faces of the board members made his stomach drop, an expression he had never seen directed at him before. It looked like pity. Margaret Chin set a document on the table in front of Richard and slid it forward. At the top, in clean black letters, Callaway and Voss International Majority Shareholder Agreement. Richard scanned the page. His eyes stopped, then went back, then stopped again. The name, Walter E. Callaway. His mouth went dry. That's, he started. The original founder's son, Margaret said quietly. Walter Callaway. He inherited 54% of the company 17 years ago when his father passed. He has never sold a single share. Richard stared at the paper. The room was completely silent. Richard couldn't finish the sentence. Working here, the chairman said, anonymously, for the past 8 months. He came to us 6 months before your appointment and proposed it himself. Said he wanted to see how the company felt from the ground up. Said his father always told him, if you want to know the soul of the business, don't look at the boardroom. Look at how people treat the ones who clean it. The blood drained from Richard's face. He observed every floor, every department, every manager. Margaret paused. He filed a report with us last week. He was actually going to recommend a bonus for you. Richard repeated. That was before this morning. The elevator doors opened at the lobby level. Richard stepped out, and there was Walter sitting calmly on a bench near the entrance, his cap in his hands, as if he had been expecting this. Around him stood 3 members of legal, 2 board advisors, and Margaret Chun. Richard walked toward him slowly. The man who had commanded every room he had ever entered suddenly looked small. He stopped in front of Walter. Walter looked up. No anger, no triumph, just those same steady, quiet eyes. Richard opened his mouth, and for the first time in a very long time, the words didn't come easily.